Mark, 15 seconds until airtime.
Oregon is going to the Final Four.
The following is a Learfield presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
Welcome to Duck Insider.
Man, it feels great to be a Duck. Give it to me, baby. My house. I'm taking it there.
Their competitors, they'll want to put the O on.
Three, got it!
We're going to compete to a standard every day.
The Oregon standard.
Rebound, up and in! 1 point more to go!
The opportunity to play, put Oregon on your chest, should mean a great deal to you.
Unloads on one into left field, back toward the wall. Gone!
This program is staged to compete and to win championships.
Oregon wins!
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Better banking, local solutions. Live from the Country Financial Studio, let's talk Oregon athletics.
Happy Friday, everybody. It's almost the weekend here on the campus of the University of Oregon. Really, it's almost the weekend anywhere. Thanks for hanging out here in the 1 o'clock hour. I'm Jordan Brenner hosting today. Ryan over there on the director chair. Scott Phillips hanging out. Brandon back in our studio. Look, we're just counting down the time before tonight's big game in Corvallis against Oregon State. That's what this show's all about. I'll preview it. Kelly Graves, media availability. Chance Gray talked to the media yesterday. We'll get to both of those interviews. How about Oregon men's and women's tennis starting their spring season today? The men already in action at the Student Tennis Center, up 3-0 against Utah State. We'll have a bunch on that. And then looking forward to tomorrow's tilt in Palo Alto against Stanford as Oregon men's basketball tries to put together just their second 3-game winning streak of the season. They're going to need to do it. We'll preview that one too. But let's start with the game tonight in Corvallis. Oregon at Oregon State, the 19th consecutive rivalry matchup between these two teams where one team is ranked. It's Oregon tonight against Oregon State. Now, this rivalry has turned into a really significant game in this state, right? Every single time these two get together, it's always a fun matchup. It's always a rivalry intense matchup. Kelly Graves, he was honest about it. It's not the same magic that we saw when Sabrina was here. He likened those games to some of those Bulls-Pistons matchups. That is not hyperbole. I was there for some of those games. Many of you, I'm sure, were there for those matchups when Sabrina was here. I mean, players, Ryan, I want your thoughts on this. Players used to leave those matchups with, scratches on their arms, bruises everywhere. It really was Bulls-Pistons. It's not the same anymore, but still plenty of magic in this rivalry, and we're looking forward to the game tonight.
Yeah, and you think of when Sabrina was here, she went toe-to-toe with Michaela Pivic, Destiny Slocum. There were some really good Oregon State teams. Those are some really, really good Oregon teams during those times. And it was a heavyweight bout every single time those teams faced off, whether it was down here in MKA or up at Gill Coliseum. It was always a heavyweight fight.
It's always a big deal to come out of this rivalry series with a win. It's really unique to come out of it for the season with a season sweep, and that's what Oregon's going for tonight. Big stakes tonight, even if it isn't quite Bulls-Pistons with these two teams, but thinking about where Oregon is in their season, they're going to try and get out of a little mid-season lull, and I said this yesterday, there's no better way to get out of a mid-season lull than to go up to Gill Coliseum and come out of there with a win. I mean, that is a feeling unlike any other. It's a victory that can jumpstart your season. And hopefully Oregon can start to build some good habits tonight, which takes me into my keys for tonight's game. And number one, and Kelly Graves talked about this yesterday, it has to be defensive lapses. You can't have those. Great teams don't. Teams that win conference championships don't. Teams that go deep in the NCAA tournament don't. And quite frankly, in Oregon's biggest games this year, it has been those defensive lapses. Now, it's not a question of whether Oregon is trying. That's certainly not the case. But it's more a question of being physical and rebounding. You're going to have to be physical. And when Oregon lost against Washington State on Sunday last week, quite frankly, they weren't physical enough. Listen to this stat. Washington State outscored Oregon in the paint 46-24. That's minus 22 for the scoring margin in the paint. That's the largest of the season for Oregon. Now, of course, there were rebounds, or for reasons for that statistic. Of course, you miss a Filipina Che for the fourth quarter and overtime. By the way, she's questionable for tonight. That's not going to be helpful when you're trying to out-physical a team. The Cougars grabbed 50 boards to Oregon's 36. Now, when Oregon beat Oregon State earlier this season at Matthew Knight Arena, a fantastic game, maybe the performance of the season for India Rogers. We'll get to that more in a second. Oregon and Oregon State both grabbed 41 boards. So it's not a question of out-rebounding the opponent by 20 or even less than that, 10. You just got to be competitive on the boards. Now, of course, we hope Filipina Che can go tonight. She would certainly help with that physicality, with that rebounding. Rob Mosley, and he went out and reported this. Kelly Graves also talked about it at his media availability yesterday. She's questionable. She has been able to get some work in, but hasn't quite yet been cleared to be a full go tonight after entering concussion protocol in the aftermath of that loss against Washington State on Sunday. So defense, physicality, rebounding, certainly going to be a key tonight against Oregon State. And then offensively, less hero ball, less one-on-one. Another thing Kelly Graves has talked about, he pointed out an interesting statistic that stood out to me on Tip-Off Tuesday. When Oregon scores, or when they assist on 62% of their made shots, they're a hard team to beat. They didn't get to that number either game last weekend against Washington or Washington State. So sharing the ball, being on a string offensively, being in that flow, going to be absolutely critical. Against Washington and Washington State, they assisted on less than 50% of their made shots. Now, of course, Oregon's talented enough, and almost every time they get on the court, they're going to be talented enough to beat teams while going one-on-one. But the highest ceiling of this team, the best that this team can be, is when they're sharing the ball. There's no doubt about it. So let's take a look at the Pac-12 standings here before we get to a preview of this contest with Terry Johns and Rob Mosley. It's a major game tonight in Pac-12 standings because, well, look at Oregon there. In a group of 6 ranked teams, Oregon is currently in a tie for, third. Or I guess, I don't even know how to read that. They're at the bottom of the pack for the 6 ranked teams. They're tied with number 19, Arizona, behind by 1 loss, so a half game behind UCLA. Colorado, Stanford, and Utah are all tied at the top at 5-1. So this weekend, and actually tonight, Utah and Stanford are going to play each other. So one of those teams will lose, but going to be important for Oregon to hold serve today because if you look at the matchups that Colorado, UCLA, and Arizona have against Cal, Washington, and Arizona State, those are some of the bottom-tier teams in the conference. You would expect that everybody's going to hold serve ahead of Oregon. Now, again, you lose a game at home against Washington State on a Sunday, it's important to get one back on the road, and a big opportunity to do that against Oregon State. Let's step aside for a second. Terry Johns, Rob Mosley on the Quack Minute. They did their best to look ahead to this game. Then I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about Oregon State. Here's Terry.
The Ducks coming off 3 straight splits in conference play, but 2 of them were at home, and this week they get to try and make up for it heading to Corvallis, taking on the Oregon State Beavers. Friday night, 8 o'clock tip, and Rob, both teams kind of in the same boat. They both need a win.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Oregon women in a tough spot the last couple weeks. If you're going to get a split, I feel like you'd always rather win the second one, so you come home with some good vibes and you feel good about yourselves, and you go into the next week with some momentum. Unfortunately, you're coming off a tough loss last week at Arizona, now a tough loss this week in overtime against Washington State, and you got to regroup and kind of bottle that, push it to the side, however you funnel it the best, because this is a big time game. It's going to be a tough atmosphere on the road at Oregon State, and the Beavs are obviously going to be looking for some revenge.
Yeah, we've got our work cut out for us. We've now beaten them up there the last, I think, 3 times, if I'm not mistaken.
That may be right.
Yeah, I think we've beaten them 3 in a row up there in Gill, and that's not easy, but we hope that that trend continues.
Chance Gray, who had a big shot to beat the Beavers in the game here, Pac-12 Freshman of the Week, and she's looking forward to it and says her game's just getting better and better.
I would say in the beginning of the year, I was kind of trying to find my role. Now I'm finding my role, good shots to take. My coaches want me to be aggressive, so nobody's really holding me back. The only person that can hold myself back is me. So that's kind of what I'm learning. I'm still adjusting, growing, trying to fit in, playing off the ball a little bit more. And now I'm back on the ball, so just learning the balance, but it's getting easier as every game goes.
And that's your Quack Minute, brought to you by our Rivalry Series partners.
So it's not an end-all, be-all type of game for Oregon today. I don't think you could call a game like that on I don't think you could call a game that in January for a team with expectations to make a run in the Pac-12 tournament, to go deep into March Madness, but it does feel like a game where Oregon can start to build those habits. Now, you look at Oregon State, they're 2-5 in conference play. I don't think you should let that fool you, because they can compete with anybody in this conference. We obviously saw that earlier this year at Matthew Knight Arena. But just taking a look at Oregon State this year, first of all, individuals on their team are getting better. And secondly, they have gone toe-to-toe with all the best teams in the conference. Not only Oregon, but a 3-point loss at what is now number 19 Arizona. Oregon fans know how difficult it is to win in Tucson in that crazy environment. So just a 3-point loss at Arizona. They also got a 5-point win versus number 9 UCLA, now number 9 UCLA. So they usually play up to their opponents. And then I said this a little earlier, individuals getting better on their team. How about their freshman Reagan Beers? She has just steadily gotten better and better since Oregon saw her and the Beavs on December 11th. Since that point, she has 5 games where she has scored 19 or more. Remember, this is just a freshman figuring it out. She had 22 in that 5-point win against UCLA, so has done it against top-tier opponents, and she's averaging nearly a double-double as a freshman. Now, you know how much I hate to give Oregon State credit. That's one of my least favorite things to do, but you have to give Reagan Beers credit, and it's exciting if you think about the future of this rivalry. I'm excited to see Reagan Beers and Grace Van Slooten go at it for years to come. And I think Grace Van Slooten is due for a big game tonight. She's been banged up, but due for a big one, coming off that 2-for-10 anomaly, we'll call it, against Washington State. Still hit those clutch free throws to force overtime at the end. But that'll be fun to watch Grace Van Slooten and Reagan Beers go at it. May even be guarding each other for a large part of this game, a couple of freshman forward phenoms. How about that alliteration for those two teams? So let's look at that last game against Oregon State, one of the games of the season. I was there. I was courtside. Ryan, you were also there. Immense energy in Matthew Knight Arena. Oregon trailed that basketball game 60-53 midway through the fourth quarter. Oregon went on a 17-2 run against Oregon State, including 12 points down the stretch from India Rogers. And Ryan, you and I were talking off the air. That felt like a significant game over the course of India Rogers' career, where not only is she a solid piece, but maybe a number one option for a great team. That was a performance that she's built on, too. I mean, she has sustained that level of play since that game against Oregon State.
Yeah, that was really the game where she kind of burst onto the scene. And for me in particularly, and I think for a lot of Oregon fans, she had that career-high 34 points. And what I saw in that game is just what she could do with the basketball in her hands. She has such a tight and succinct handle and is able to get to the bucket in so many different ways with so many different moves, especially when she's in transition. That game against Oregon State for me was, okay, this is a legit ball-handling point guard, and she can get to the bucket whenever she wants to. She can also knock down a shot whenever she wants to. She was very efficient in that game as well.
And that clutch gene, too. 6 of 10 from 3, grabbed 9 rebounds, dished out 6 assists on her way to a career-high 34 points. She's scored 33 since then, actually in the last game against Washington State. 34, still that career high for India Rogers. You start thinking about some of the great performances in the history of Oregon State when India Rogers has a game like that. And just in recent history, it's up there in some of the wins against Oregon State in terms of how dominant that performance was. You start remembering that 23.9 assist, 4 rebound performance Sabrina had in 2020. One that may get lost a little bit just because it was in that weird 2020 season. Tahina Paupau had 22, 9 of 15 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3 in a win against the Beavers in 2020. That's an impressive one. 2019, maybe the best performance in recent history for a Duck against Oregon State. Sabrina had 29, 9 assists, and 5 boards on February 15th. Tremendous game from Sabrina there. One of the great performances in the history of Oregon basketball. It seems like you need some performances like that when these two teams get together. Just looking forward to it. That's tonight. Catch Terry Johns on the call. Let's get a break. Kelly Graves talked about this matchup. We'll go to his media availability after this break. Keep it here. We're in the Country Financial Studio on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union, onpointcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
Your daily dose of Oregon athletics. This is Duck Insider from Learfield.
This is your captain. We are going to be experiencing some slight turbulence. Please fasten your... Oh, hold on. Just got a video of my cat.
Imagine the pilot of an airplane was as confident as you are texting and driving. Seems kind of crazy when you put it like that.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Here's a fun fact for you. The average chameleon can point their eyes in 2 different directions. On the other hand, the average human can't. So unless you're a chameleon, there's absolutely no way you can focus on texting and driving at the same time. So don't do it, unless you're a chameleon.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back inside the Country Financial Studio. Duck Insider is brought to you by On Point Community Credit Union. At 8 o'clock tonight, Oregon women's basketball traveling up to Gill Coliseum. I think it's good that Oregon women's basketball just has one game this weekend. It's been a team that has unfortunately followed the opposite trajectory to the Oregon men this year, with injuries starting to catch up with the Ducks recently. So a full out 40 minutes tonight, and then Oregon will be able to hopefully get healthy. But you are going to need some players to play heavy minutes tonight, that's for sure. Kelly Graves met with the media yesterday and previewed this rivalry matchup with Oregon State. Let's go to KJ here.
Down in terms of results the last couple of weeks, what's 1 or 2 things that you think are the biggest impediments to reaching some consistency?
Defensive consistency, I think. It comes and goes, and and we haven't shot the ball particularly well in a while. So I think the combination of those 2 things has made it look, not as good as it should. And we've got to do better. We can't split every weekend.
clearly it looks like Philly's all right after.
Yeah, she didn't do a ton live today, but she did do a lot of shooting and some of our walkthrough defensively. So she still has not been cleared for full contact, but we'll see. I'm hopeful.
Regardless, you didn't play Kennedy last game either. Is that just because of matchups?
Yeah, I think it was more the matchups. Yeah. No, if Philly can't go tomorrow, then obviously Kennedy has to, because they're just so big, and we can't play a whole game undersized.
Especially against Oregon State, just the way that Reagan Beers has kind of been playing this Pac-12 season specifically. Just how important will those kind of the freshman Reagan and versus the freshman Grace, like those matchups be in this game?
Well, we never really focus on this player against that player, but yeah, we've got to, if we're not as big as we've been, if Philly is unable to go, then yeah, it puts a lot of pressure on all our players. Not just our inside players, our guards are going to have to help a lot more, and it's going to have to be, through team defense. So yeah, they're just good, and now they're rotating those three. They don't always they don't start big, but they go big quickly, and then they stay with it the rest of the game. So we're just going to have to defend the high-low best we can, work our butts off, and then not let Talia go off. I mean, obviously she's still the focus of that team.
On the topic of a player like Reagan Beers, she's someone that has really broken through in the past since you guys have last played them. So how has the preparation been different since the last time you did play Oregon State, knowing that they may have some different players that have really stepped up and you need to watch out for?
Well, she was playing well the first time we played them too, so we game planned for her. We game plan for all their big kids. So you just can't let them get too close to the rim. They're too big and they're too skilled in there. So we haven't really changed our preparation. I mean, Reagan, we know, is a good player, and she's proven it all year.
How would you say, especially if Philly can go, has she closed the gap over the last 4 or 5 weeks compared to Mitrovic, where there's just it's a more experienced player, and you're hoping over the course of time and playing Philly more that that experience starts to pay dividends when you have matchups like this or against a Brink or those kind of bigs.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think Philly, you guys see it too. She continues to improve and get better. I think she's got to get even better. I mean, she's got to continue on that spectrum. This week was a setback, obviously, but I think she's excited to get back. It's now not just Mitrovic with her. I mean, because Mitrovic played fewer minutes. Since Tamia Gardner's come in, it's kind of the three-headed monster. They're all really good. So, we don't have three to throw at them. So we're just going to, Philly's going to have to play big if she does indeed play. If it's not Philly, then Kennedy and Grace and Taylor and at times Taya Hansen in there at the power forward spot.
How much of the next 6 to 8 weeks, Kelly, is beyond the outcomes, and yes, you want to win every game you can win. That's a good. Yeah. But when it comes time in March, that it's also about finding that answer for probably 4 of the 5 you're going to put out there in a late close situation, but knowing for sure, regardless of matchup, is it going to be Philly? Is it going to be Taya? Is it going to be Kennedy? Is it going to be Elise? If you go small, finding that answer over the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, I think we kind of know what we want to do, and it's obviously always situational to some degree. We've played well in the small ball. When I say small with Taya at the 4, we've played good basketball at times, and then we haven't played so good. Then we've played pretty well sometimes when we've gone big, and so it's just again, I think it goes back to that the word we used earlier, consistency. We just haven't been as consistent as I'd like us to be.
What is it about their zone that's just such a challenge? Because it seems like every year there's a game where you guys shoot like 36% against them, and it's just their zone apparently that gives you that kind of challenge.
They haven't zoned. They zoned us a few possessions last game, but it's mainly man-to-man. I mean, they do a really good job of sticking their center right there in the middle, and they make you make baskets. I just think they do a really good job of positioning. Knowing who to take away. They don't make the mistakes that sometimes we do when we might go under on a shooter, under a ball screen, and then boom, they stop. And they're just so consistent and so disciplined defensively. And I think that's why they don't pressure you. It's not like they're taking you out of what you do. They just do a good job of position defense, and then they limit you to one shot, and then they don't give you anything around the basket. That's the biggest thing. You get nothing easy around the rim. It's like going against Ware and Foley, right? I mean, there's just nothing easy around that rim, and that's how they do it.
Aside from this being a rivalry game, is there a kind of different feeling when you're playing a road game, but you're within an hour away rather than being on a flight, just like mentally kind of?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, you just go up there and it's a tough environment, you know, for a road team. So I think that's your biggest issue. But no, you know, we go up the day of the game, you know, they would normally just be laying around napping in their apartment. Instead of doing that, they're napping on the bus when we leave. So I don't think it's been too big of an issue. I mean, we've won up there 3 times in a row, and there was a while we couldn't win up there. So we've had a nice run, but you know, that doesn't matter. We just got to go out and play well tomorrow.
How is Grace feeling? I know she's kind of had to gut it out the last couple of weeks of injuries, but you feel like she's getting healthier, closer to what she was earlier?
Yeah, I don't think Grace is 100%, but she's better than she was last weekend. Yeah, I think just the fact that we only had the 1 game this week, so she took a couple extra days off, and she's been working through it. So, yeah, I think she's going to be fine.
And coming off such a tough loss, we've seen this team really respond after tough losses. What in practice maybe today have you seen that makes you excited for the game?
Yeah, that's a good question. I thought yesterday and today we had really good practices, spirited. We got a lot of shooting in, which helps. Yeah, you've got to let go, you know, the last result. And that was a tough one, especially after we've all seen the replays now. It was a tough one to have given up. But, yeah, you got to move on. That's part of being a college athlete, right?
Any more clarity on what happened late in the game?
No, I talked with the Pac-12, and I think technically they did the right thing on a little pause there on the clock. I wish it was more like football does. They let, on a live action like that, they let it play through and then sort it out, but they didn't. And, it's just unfortunate. We were on the wrong end of, a fumble, a late game fumble.
You mentioned the win streak there, Kelly. How do you, with newer players especially, ingrain them and ingratiate them and teach them about this? Because, I don't think there's anyone left in the room who remembers that a coffee cup was a thing in this rivalry.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and, but point is, I don't think anyone in your room remembers that. Do you want them to know that? Because the point is, it's great when you're winning, but you don't ever want to have the feeling of if you lose there and now it suddenly means something because the group before had the experience of that kind of thing. Do you want them to care like that?
James, I'll tell you, I think it's a little different time. I think given the movement of our players and stuff, I'm not sure these rivalry games, I know it's ingrained more in Scott because he is a 10th generation Beaver, right? So yeah, I think it's harder and harder to really promote this rivalry because you just sometimes don't have players that have, kind of been through it for a few years. When we had kind of that Sabrina crew, I mean, it was almost like the Bulls Pistons, right? The Bulls had to get through the Pistons, and finally Sabrina's team as a senior won up there. It really meant a lot, and now it's just it's still a rivalry game. But I don't know. I think I'm going round and round here. But I think it's just different. And my guess is it's probably like that in a lot of places in the country. And the fact that now we've separated the 2 games. Now, this is always a big week. In fact, a few years ago, it made front page sports in the New York Times, right? This rivalry, 22,000 people in a 36-hour period. That was really cool. And it's changed a little bit.
What do you think that right there just says about?
I know I'm supposed to go 30-second soundbite.
Wait, I thought that was a really good answer. It was honest.
30-second soundbite.
It was honest.
I love it.
I liked it. And I mean, but just kind of going off of that, do you think the portal, since the portal has grown since that time, do you think, there's a lot of players too. There's probably players on Oregon State that they have a brand new team too that really don't understand the rival.
Yeah, and that's why I say I think Scott does a good job of really getting them ready for this game, and maybe that's an area I've got to do better. They've had the better of us over, my tenure here. We just listen. Tomorrow, you're looking at 2 hungry teams. I wouldn't say 2 desperate teams, but 2 really hungry teams. Somebody told me the other day it's like 2 dogs fighting after 1 bone. I mean, that's what it's going to be like So we better be ready because we need this. We need this. We've given away a couple at home. We've got to find a couple on the road now to steal back.
And just knowing how many people showed up for the game against Oregon State here, it's going to be a big game there. Just what does that say about the support of women's basketball in the state of Oregon?
Yeah, well, our fans here are tremendous. Obviously the ones here, but the ones up in Gill too. We've had two really good programs over the last several years, so it's easy to, for those fans to come out. I'd love to see it packed up there tomorrow. I think that's great. I don't think that would bother our team any. They should be worried about the other 5 on the court. But yeah, it's one of the best rivalries in the country. I think it's really neat, and I know that our players appreciate when they go into a full house or whether that's at home or on the road.
Does it help to have had that Arizona game just a couple weeks ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Yeah, we've played relatively well on the road. It's arguably we play better on the road than we have at home. Right? Arizona is a game we could have won. Arizona State we played pretty well, and those were our only road games in conference.
Have you asked Valerie to talk to Lisa and Teresa at all about some things in the league the last week or so?
Yeah, we can talk off record there. Yeah.
Kelly Graves meeting with the media yesterday ahead of tonight's 8 p.m. tip against Oregon State. Terry Johns live on the pregame show at 7:30. The game will be televised on Pac-12 Networks. 8 p.m. tonight against the Beavers. We'll hear from the Pac-12 Freshman of the Week, Chance Gray, after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear winter, Toyota's got 20 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action, and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/22.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, our all-inclusive event pricing allows us to take care of all of the details while you enjoy your event. Our wedding garden, expansive grounds, ballroom, and meeting rooms can accommodate any size event and come complete with full catering and service staff. From weddings to business and social events, Shadow Hills offers the benefits of a resort atmosphere and the peace of a country setting just minutes from downtown Eugene. For more details, call us today or go to shadowhillsevents.com.
Dear winter, Toyota's got 20 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action, and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/22.
You're listening to Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Guys, it's me, Isabella Gomez, filling in for Smokey Bear because he's got more to say than just...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Like, if you're outside enjoying a barbecue, don't let a hamburger distract you from fire safety. Make sure you aren't dumping your hot coals or ashes onto the ground because that could start a wildfire. So take wildfire prevention seriously and let's save the world one day at a time. Juntos con Smokey Bear, podemos hacerlo. Go to smokeybear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back inside the Country Financial Studio. Duck Insider is brought to you by On Point Community Credit Union. Before we get to Chance Gray, a little update from the Student Tennis Center. Oregon men's tennis getting going with their spring schedule this morning. The Ducks got off to a quick start, winning the doubles portion of the match, going up 1-0. And now in singles, Oregon is up on Utah State 4-1. So altogether, 5-1 Oregon. Match is still in progress, but things looking pretty good for Coach Shelander's squad. We'll continue to update you, and we'll have a full season preview coming up later on in the show. But let's get to Chance Gray. You know, one of the joys of basketball and college basketball is seeing how a young player can progress throughout the season. Chance Gray's coming into her own. coming off a Pac-12 Freshman of the Week award this past week. A career-high 22 points in 42 minutes against Washington State. 5 of 9 shooting from behind the three-point line. 4 came in the first half, and her 5 threes were career best and the most by a freshman since December 16, 2019, when Jazz Shelley made 10. That's one of those records that may still exist when I'm a very old man. That's a pretty impressive clip by Jazz Shelley in 2019. You know, Chance Gray, a good sign to me is when a young player makes her free throws. She's hitting 93.5% of her free throws this year, and she went 7 of 7 from the line this past week. You know she's licking her chops tonight after a 3 for 10 performance in the win against Oregon State earlier this season. Chance Gray spoke with the media yesterday at Matthew Knight Arena. Here we go.
You played in a rivalry game with Oregon State before. What did you learn from that game that maybe gives you a little confidence or understanding of what this means going into their game?
It means a lot. We're both coming off of losses, so it's going to be 2 very hungry teams trying to go in and get the W. Last game here was intense atmosphere, great atmosphere to play in. We were down and we had to fight back, so probably a better start to the game so we don't have to run up a hill the rest of the game.
Just having kind of a scout or an idea of what you're going against help. It's the first time this year you'll kind of had a repeat opponent.
Talia, very good player, Pac-12 guard. Obviously we have to stop her. They're big on the inside. They're trying to dominate on the inside a little bit more, so just making sure we do what we're supposed to do, personnel per usual, and just playing a little bit harder.
How long did it take to move past Sunday's game? I know that was just a really tough one, and kind of what have the last 48 hours or so been for you guys?
Obviously it was a tough one, but you have to move on. Next game, that's kind of been our mentality. We know every week it's a new challenge, next big game, so that's kind of been our mentality about it.
When you scout for the next game, do you more so are you guys more so looking back at the Oregon State game, or are you guys kind of looking more so at your film from the last game and trying to build off that?
A little bit of both. They're a new team. They added Tamia, who was in my class as well. So they have new players, new little bit of style. They're trying to dominate on the inside a little bit more. So new team, not really the same, but some of the aspect of last game.
And I know you're a freshman, but playing your first year in college, what's it been like to kind of see some of those players that you saw maybe in high school and be playing against them in the Pac?
It's been cool just to see everybody thriving in their own different ways. I'm happy for everybody at the end of the day, but when we're rivals, so you got to go and get the W.
Results for you guys the last couple weeks been a little up and down. What do you think are the biggest factors in finding some consistency?
I think it starts with defense, just consistency there, no lulls, just focusing, really locking in, and just playing a little bit harder, better starts to games. That'll be the biggest thing. If we play defense, we'll be able to win the game because our offense speaks for itself.
You guys have had some great home environments. You haven't had a lot of true road games, and this is always the biggest and the toughest because it's always a sellout. It's your first time seeing it. Just how do you even begin to prepare yourself for when it's just that kind of environment? It's unique. It's hard to describe.
I think just like staying in the moment, not getting too up and down. I'm just playing very calm. The Arizona game was a game for me where I was in a big atmosphere again. I know Oregon State's kind of going to be the same. So just staying in my head, staying calm, playing with patience, not letting the fans or anybody rattle me up.
What's key to shooting well against the zone defense?
Just finding spots, feet set, balance, taking the shots when they're open, no hesitations. I think that kind of goes for everybody.
You going to travel your dad now, or do you think you can take some of what he imparted on you moving forward?
Yeah, he helps me a lot, so I'll just kind of pick up what we did the night before. But yeah, I wish he was here. I wish he could be here, but he can't. So yeah.
What did it mean to win Conference Freshman of the Week?
It meant a lot, but just kind of focused on our team and what we're doing now. Just trying to get another W. I got it, but we lost, so that's what I'm focused on. Yeah.
And I think Grace has probably been a player for you that you can kind of relate to, having big roles as freshmen on this team. And Oregon State has a couple freshmen themselves that have kind of stood out. Just what does that say about this kind of rivalry and what role the freshmen are going to play in the victory going either way?
Yeah, everybody has to step up in their own ways, the whole team. Me and Grace talk a lot. We came in together. We played AAU together, so we just talk a lot, try to figure things out, different game plans, just making sure we're both very focused for the upcoming game.
I know you said the last game against Oregon State was intense. Just what about it? What did they kind of do to give you guys a little bit of trouble?
I think it was honestly us kind of shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit, but once we picked it up, knew we had to start making those runs, we all kind of brought it together, and we came together as a team in the end, and that's what helped us push together to win the game.
You guys added Sammy shortly after the new year. What's she like? What kind of player is she? What does she add to the team?
She's fun. She's been on the other team, so I haven't really had a chance to play with her, but great person to be around. Brings in a lot of energy and positivity. I really like her, and I'm excited to see what she can bring to us next year.
When you're coming from across the country to a rivalry like this, how do you learn parts of the history of it, other than like obviously they're in-state rivals, they don't like each other very much, but like do you know about certain things from a few years ago, or is it just like, hey, if I wasn't there?
To be honest, no. I don't really know much about it. I just play in the game, and I just want to win. But from the last game here, I can tell it's very hard-fought rivalry over the last couple of years, so it's something that I want to keep winning.
Do you have a different mindset knowing that it is a rivalry game, or at the end of the day, do you just look at it like another game on your schedule you want to win?
I would say another game, just because I know we want to keep winning, keep trying to win, keep pulling out different wins. So that's kind of the way I try to go into it. Obviously, I know the atmosphere is going to be very different than some regular Pac-12 games, but that's kind of how I try to approach it.
There's Chance Gray speaking with the media yesterday. 8 o'clock tonight, Pac-12 Networks, 7:30 p.m., live on the pregame with Terry Johns. Go up the 5 today. Get up to Kill Coliseum. Wear green. Be loud. Let's invade that building, huh? Big game tonight, 8 o'clock, Oregon women's basketball in a rivalry matchup. We'll get a break, come back, talk some men's basketball as they look ahead to a big matchup against Stanford. We'll take a look at the Pac-12 standings, too, here on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union, onpointcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
Hey Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
This is Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Ready for our little forest adventure?
Yes! So much waiting for me. Yeah, I wanna go outside. I wanna be.
We're here.
Whoa, that was fast.
There's a forest closer than you think. Find a park or forest near you and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by USDA Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You're not too cool for me. And in return, I reciprocate that sentiment. I'll never be too cool for you. I was a man with a plan, but now I'm a dad with a decree, and you can't take that from me. Please let it be noted that I told my job they can dock my pay. Right now, it's just too important to take you to school every day. I want to be legendary for you. I want you to puff out your chest when you go to school, the same way I do. I walk taller because of you, because I found everything to live for.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Heading on towards that 2 o'clock hour here on a Friday. Big day, big weekend in Oregon athletics. Thanks for being here with us in the Country Financial Studio. Jordan Brenner here. Joey Mack getting ready for a men's basketball game tomorrow against Stanford. Before we dive into that matchup, let's look at the updated Pac-12 standings after yesterday's result. UCLA, what a win at Arizona State. That was one of the great environments I've seen in a Pac-12 basketball game this year. Arizona State was fired up. Obviously, Duck fans knew how well they were playing entering that matchup with UCLA. They came into Matthew Knight Arena and played one of the games of their season, one of the best games they've played in recent history. And they had UCLA on the ropes. They led in the second half before UCLA put them in a chokehold down the stretch. Wow, what an impressive win by UCLA by 12, outscoring Arizona State 44-27 in the second half. UCLA remains unbeaten in conference, and they build a cushion on that number 1 spot, now 2 games ahead of Arizona State, who's in second. Utah is 6-3. They beat Washington State 77-63 yesterday at home, so the Utes continuing a good run this year. And how about Arizona beating USC? I think that's a good result. Oregon's going to want Arizona to keep on winning. You want that win that the Ducks had last week to continue to look impressive, and they rebounded in a nice way with an 81-66 thrashing of the Trojans. There's Oregon, though, 5-3, tied with USC and Arizona, a chance to leap into a tie for third place if you can beat 1-7 Stanford tomorrow. Now, on paper, this should be one that Oregon gets. But Stanford's coming off their first conference win of the season, and they have some momentum. I thought it was going to be 0-8 Stanford against 5-3 Oregon. Unfortunately, Stanford just had their biggest win of the season. They absolutely tattoo Oregon State. So this isn't a rollover. It never is in this conference. So Stanford 6-12 overall. They'd lost 7 straight games to start the conference season, and this win snapped a 5-game losing streak. They didn't just beat the Beavers 67-46 over Oregon State. And 6'7" Spencer Jones last year, Duck fans will kind of remember him, even though Oregon played some great defense against him when the Ducks split with the Cardinal last year. He was a Pac-12 honorable mention forward, honorable mention all defense last year, and he's gotten even better this year. He's averaging a career best 12.8 points per game, and against Oregon State had maybe his best game of the season with 18 points on 7 of 11 shooting, stretched the floor a little bit, hit 4 threes as well. It's not just Spencer Jones, it's Michael Jones, who is a historic member of the Stanford basketball team. This is one of the wildest things I've ever heard. You ready for this? Michael Jones is the first graduate transfer in the history of Stanford basketball. He's the first transfer in 12 years for Stanford basketball. Wow. That's absolutely crazy, and it's not like he's been Michael Jordan for him. He's been good, though, and had a big game against Oregon State, 4 of 6 from 3. He's a 6'5" graduate transfer from Davidson. So Michael Jones, the first graduate transfer, going to try and lead Stanford to another win at Maples Pavilion, a building that has been pretty brutal to Oregon in recent history. Dating back to 1999, Stanford is 18-5 all-time against the Ducks in the Bay Area. Last year, the home team won both matchups. The Ducks lost 72-69 in Palo Alto, despite battling back from a 14-point deficit. I remember watching this game, and I chose to flush it from my memory until reading about it again this morning. Jaden Dallaire hit a buzzer beater to beat the Ducks last year. That was one of the more brutal moments of last season. So Oregon thinking about revenge. An extra off day for the Ducks entering this one after the weird Wednesday night win against Cal. And this is how Oregon was spending their off day at the Warriors facility. Some championship weights. There's N'Faly Dante getting a lift in. Will Richardson with the lefty slam at the Warriors facility. That's just a really cool experience for Oregon basketball players. It's not unique to the Ducks. A lot of Pac-12 teams get to do that when they go to the Bay Area for that trip, but just a really cool experience. You could see the picture of Wilt Chamberlain in the background with Quincy Guerrier getting up some shots on the right wing. Just a legendary franchise, and the Ducks getting to practice where some of the best players in the world get to practice. That's a good way to stay hot, I think, entering that Saturday matchup. It's the type of week where you wish Oregon just played games on 3 straight days to continue that momentum. But a trip to the Warriors facility, that's a good way to keep spirits high after 2 straight wins. Oregon, if they win this one, will win 3 in a row for just the second time this season. The only other 3-game winning streak, Nevada, UC Riverside, Portland. I think this one would be a little bit better. Arizona, Cal, and Stanford. Ducks trying to get it done. Tomorrow, Joey Mack will have the call on Saturday. And by the way, we had Joey Mack on yesterday. It was his birthday. He failed to mention that. I don't check Facebook. That's the only way to figure it out. Happy birthday, Joey. You're the man. Happy birthday. I wish I knew yesterday, and I hope you're having a great road trip. Let's get a break. We'll come back and talk Oregon men's and women's tennis getting their spring schedules going today, and the men are off to a good start. That's coming on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey, Duck fans! The official 2022 Oregon football trading cards are now available exclusively at your local Oregon Jackson's food stores. The cards feature over 100 of your favorite Duck football student athletes from the 2022 season. Each pack contains 14 cards, and 1 out of every 10 packs will contain a special edition signed card, so be sure to collect them all to complete your set. Visit Jacksons.com for store locations.
Jacksons. Let's go.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, our all-inclusive event pricing allows us to take care of all of the details while you enjoy your event. Our wedding garden, expansive grounds, ballroom, and meeting rooms can accommodate any size event and come complete with full catering and service staff. From weddings to business and social events, Shadow Hills offers the benefits of a resort atmosphere and the peace of a country setting just minutes from downtown Eugene. For more details, call us today or go to shadowhillsevents.com.
More Duck Insider coming up on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear. Call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. And now a speech.
I just want to say that friendship is about heart and brain. Who's with me?
Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy.
Me too.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
It's the start of the spring tennis schedule here at the University of Oregon. Big day at the Student Tennis Center. Welcome back to the Country Financial Studio. I'm Jordan Brenner. Duck Insider brought to you by On Point Community Credit Union. 4 total matches at the Student Tennis Center today. 1 down, 1-0. Oregon men's tennis with the 6-1 victory over Utah State. They got it started behind the doubles team of Quinn Vandercastile and Joshua Charlton. They went up 1-0. They never looked back. 6-1, a dominant victory for the Oregon men's tennis program in their spring opener today. You can also catch them later today at 5 p.m. taking on UC Riverside. It's a chance for Oregon men's tennis to set the tone in January. Ducks heading to Columbus next on January 27th for the ITA kickoff. Early season. Joshua Charlton, Quinn Vandercastile, that's the number 9 ranked doubles team. That's a duo to watch. That's must-see stuff if you're in the Eugene area. Get over to the Student Tennis Center and watch those two play some tennis. They had a huge year last year, and they're looking to reach another doubles championship tournament this year, and they're already 1-0 together. They won their match 6-4. The Ducks return spots 1 through 5 in the lineup. They've retooled with talented freshmen. and a standout transfer in Ray Lowe from Wichita State. And more good news from Oregon men's tennis announced yesterday, bringing in a major recruit, Zion van der Stappen from Belgium, announced by Coach Niels Schielander to join the team next year. He's from Belgium. He's the number 2 overall under-18 player in Belgium and the number 40 player overall. And as a tennis nerd myself, I watched some of this guy's practice on YouTube. He adds up. He is really good. He is really, really good. Great start for Oregon men's tennis again. They have another match later today, which you can watch. You can watch all these matches at the Student Tennis Center. They're open to the public. They're free. You're not going to get a better bargain in Eugene than going to watch these two teams compete. Oregon men's tennis want to know. Oregon women's tennis also starting their season today. And they have one match today. It's coming up in just about an hour against Portland State. Also free, also open to the public against Portland State, 3 p.m. Maybe I'll head there. You can meet me. I don't know if that's an advertisement to get you there, but that's a great place to be on a Friday afternoon to open up the weekend. Oregon women's tennis returns 8 players from last season's NCAA tournament team, including all Pac-12 second team selection Sophie Lucier. Lucier went 13-7 from the number 1 singles position last year, 5-4 in conference action when the competition gets even better. Duck fans should also get excited to watch 5-star freshman Joey Chan this season being added to the roster. So trying to build on last season where Oregon earned its 9th ever postseason appearance, the first since 2018, finished ranked number 38 in the national ranking from Intercollegiate Tennis Association. Oregon posted a 15-9 record, 500 in Pac-12 play, its highest winning percentage since 2005. Going to want to watch out for Courtney Nagel's squad this season. Get out to the Student Tennis Center and watch these student athletes do their thing. All right, well, that's a good show today. Appreciate everybody's help. Ryan, as a director, Ryan, where are you watching the game tonight? 8 o'clock against Oregon State. What's the deal here?
I'm not going to make the trip up to Gill, unfortunately, but I'll be watching. I'll be on my couch, and I'll be tuned in.
Yeah, I think I would like to be at Gill, but I get kind of crazy during those games, you know? It's kind of nice to just watch it from your living room, listen to Terry on the call.
Spare the fans next to you.
Go crazy in private, right? Thanks to everybody. Brendan back in studio. Scott, Ryan, I'm Jordan Brenner. Joey back next week. Go Ducks, everybody.
To your children's eyes to see the true magic of a forest. It's a storybook world for them. You look and see a tree. They see the wrinkled face of a wizard with arms outstretched to the sky.